So today we're in Maggie's studio. She's been busy this year and last year when she was in China. Since then, Maggie, what have you been doing? What's the work that you've been doing? And how does last year's film that you showed, the film War Requiem that we showed in Venice, how does that relate to the current situation we find ourselves in, do you think?
There are obvious similarities between the war and now. I think one is much more aware of sort of rationing food, for instance, and being far away from people that you love. That's another element that is very similar. But the first reaction to this self-portrait, this is called self-portrait, in brackets, angry, and it was done at the beginning of March when I was in fury, I think, like many other people, that any plan was out of the window. I was supposed to be showing something in New York on the 1st of April, perhaps it was an ill-chosen date, but I mean that was out of the window, and there was a kind of fury that at what was happening. It hadn't really, it had only just begun, but my initial reaction to it was a kind of fury that nothing I thought was going to happen was clearly going to happen, for God knows how long. And so this painting, you know, the best ones always paint themselves, so I only feel responsible for the bad ones or the ones that go on too long. This painting painted itself, and it was a sort of outpouring, I suppose, of what was going on at that moment. So this was early March, the beginning of the virus time.
So it's interesting that this is one of the first ones you did during that period. And, you know, talking to people, you get the sense that we've all become quite introspective because we've all been locked up, you know, maybe with one or two or people on our own. Do you think you've become more inward looking as a result?
I thought art was about looking as deeply as possible
But
into one's response to what happens in life. I mean, life dictates what I paint. And so I think someone can only look at a painting and respond to it in as much as the artist in the first place has responded to the subject. And so it's all a question of trying to go more and more deeply into something one is feeling, which may eventually touch somebody else. I mean, I can really say about this painting is that I was very angry.
Angry?
Angry.
Angry with what?
With the situation.
Because you couldn't go to New York, or at least the painting couldn't go to New York?
Going to New York was just one bit of it. But other, you know, plans of exhibitions and doing things of all kinds were suddenly not going to happen. And completely out of one's control. You see, I think when I'm really painting, I'm not in control of what's happening, but in the rest of life, I possibly am a little bit of a control freak.
Really?
Okay, that was the first one.
So you're going to show us more? Great.
Oh, yeah. Is this going to ever be straight? Not straight. Sorry.
To your left a bit, Maggie, I think those screws.
Is that straight?
That's good. That's not too bad.
I like painting straight and people bent. So this next painting, April 2020, was about the conflict of the virus, the creeping graves each side, is some idea of the ever-presence of the virus in trying to invade, if not take over, the space of the blossom of the magnolias, because all around us, the spring, and all the flowering, the growth and the joy, but the ever-present virus. And so it's about that conflict, that contradiction of the situation we found ourselves in, you know, the joy of spring and yet the threat.
Mm.
And so that's why the space, the air, the breath, the light falling on the magnolia is, as I say, being invaded from all sides by the virus. That's what this painting is about.
It's interesting that this all kicked off in that moment in the springtime, and we have had some extraordinary weather since that point. Do you think it would have been a whole different situation had it been November and we'd got to get through those dark months?
I think it's bloody lucky it hasn't happened, or didn't happen, is not happening in February, because more people commit suicide in February than any other month.
Is that so?
So I think things would be even worse
Yes,
if
yeah.
it happened in February. So this is about the conflict between the spring bursting everywhere, but that feeling being tempered by the presence of the COVID. Then, chronologically, I always believe in chronology, because you do it every day in the hope of getting a little better. And this little painting, I tried to imagine how it would feel trying to breathe. I mean, it's called Trying to Breathe. And what is going on with the corona victims, this desperate search for breath, this thing that we take for granted has been taken away. And so I try to imagine myself in that condition trying to breathe, but it's very largely, it came just like that, the painting, but it's very, I don't think I could have painted it unless I'd made all the studies of my father in Ipswich Hospital for the last 2 weeks of his life as he was gradually diminishing, if you like. And I sat with my sketchbook next to the bed and made the drawings. And I think they influenced this little painting. You know, somebody being in the horizontal and, as indeed with him, trying to breathe.
So the three works you've shown so far, talked about, Maggie, they're quite eclectic in I suppose you'd say, three quite different subjects. Is that typical of the way you work? Do you jump from one thing to another in that way? Or is this, again, a product of these slightly unsettling times?
Well, no, I mean, in a way, everything's changed, and in a way, nothing has changed. I still get up at 5 o'clock every morning and come in here and work, and so that hasn't changed. And what has changed is being able to go out occasionally in the evening and have a gregarious drink as opposed to a solitary one, and give people a hug, you know. I'm a gregarious loner. I think a lot of us are, and so the loner bit is fine, but the gregarious bit is being denied us. And so, as I said, I mean, I respond in my work to what affects me in life. I mean, to remain kind of vulnerable for things to get you by the short and curlies, the subject to take you over. And yet having a backbone of steel to resist what anybody heaves at it in way of criticism or the rest of it, you know, not to give a bugger water or the duck for all of that part of it. So in a way I'm carrying on as usual. I mean, my father happened to be in hospital and I made the drawings. There are people who are struggling to breathe and this little painting happened. It's all very simple, really. Very simple.
And did you paint your father completely from memory? I mean, this little painting here, is that your father, or is that
As I said, David,
not paying attention?
I tried to imagine myself in the condition of having the coronavirus and how it would feel, desperately trying to breathe, which is something that we never normally think about.
Yeah, of course.
This diptych I think that's as straight as it gets. It's called Mourning the Unit. And the figure, the head on the left is perhaps sort of gazing down into that enormous crater that happens when someone you love dies. You know, the great hole they've left. And the right-hand one, I think, again has to do with fury, because that's the other thing you feel when somebody you love dies, is a kind of fury about it. And it also makes you feel intensely alive. You know, you feel full of energy, and you feel sexy, and all these things, because you're alive, and the other person has died. It's all quite strange, and the gold is hovering about. To do with God. I mean, I think it's quite strange that not many of us go to church, but people still want to get married in churches, funerals are in churches, baptisms are in churches, and at the worst moments of life, people find themselves praying. So the goal is the presence or not.
Do you believe in God?
Of God. I'm an optimistic doubter. I must say, when I was stopped and breathalyzed on the way back from Snape one evening, I did pray remarkably hard as I looked at the breathalyzer. And it worked. So this is called Mourning, and it's sort of two states that you could be in when somebody's died, and people are dying. I mean, that hasn't changed, it's just accelerated, as we know. This is a more recent painting. I got the last one up alright. This seems as not going to work. I don't understand it. Is that more or less true?
Perfect. Perfect.
Only God is perfect. This is a recent one called COVID Spring. And again, as with the Magnolia painting, it's to do with the conflict of papayas, and yet old spring. I don't know if you immediately notice bird here, because it's changing now of course, but with the far less cars and wonderfully the far less aeroplanes, I always obviously hear the dawn chorus, but throughout the day, it's like the magnolia being so full of joy, you can hear many more birds the whole time. I mean, this is true for everyone. I know of London, the rest, that the birds are the force of the joy of nature in conflict the whole time with the darkness of the threat and the reality of this insoluble, for the moment, corona.
I have to tell you that just at the moment I'm in conflict with the birds. We've got a cuckoo who lives at the end of our garden, and at 3:20 this morning it started.
Perhaps you should get up a bit earlier and enjoy the cuckoo. Right, well that's...
So this seems, Maggie, I would say a slightly more joyous painting than the previous ones you've talked about.
Because of the bird?
Because of the bird, because of the
Another
colour.
bird there. There were more birds that I got rid of. It became too much birds. I mean, as opposed to the little head trying to breathe, this painting went on for much longer, and sort of layers of mistakes underneath this painting, but
You talk about the birds and the dawn chorus, and here in your studio, and we've just been out in your garden. You're surrounded by nature and plants, and you're fascinated by plants, obviously, and have a great love for them. Where does that come from? Where do you think that stems?
I don't know, it only began in middle age.
Really?
My father was a great gardener, and I don't think it really often begins. It doesn't begin for many of us until you're sort of in the middle years.
Okay.
And once it got going, it got going. And I was a great friend of Derek Jarman, going to what he created at Dungeness, which we all hope is going to be saved forever. And the distant power station, there's the power station, and then there's Derek's magical garden, and again that kind of conflict. So why? You think the movement of the yellow, that your eye moves around the picture with the yellow and the pink, you think that makes it more joyous?
It seems to me, particularly the pink. The pink seems very, I don't know, it just seems very optimistic somehow about, as maybe as humans we will thrive, we will survive, we will move out of this, we will see the next spring.
It is indeed that double thing, and that's what the painting's about, is this double thing. But I've always a very early childhood memory of shocking pink. We all had socks in the 60s that were either bright luminous green or bright shocking pink. And but before that, when I was a child, these really sexy packets of Kaiser Bonda underwear were black and shocking pink. And I had a friend at school whose father travelled in Kaiser Bonda underwear. And so there were always packets always about, stocking suspenders, all sorts of things. And we used to play shops, selling each other these very... we were far too young to understand what it was about. But I remember being very excited by shocking pink and black. That combination is very deeply within me. Can you sort of shoot these little ones up close afterwards or so? This one's called Bad Day. There's a heap of cigarette ends on the floor. And somehow I laid this little painting horizontally and a cigarette end fell on it. So then I scooped up lots of cigarette ends and the paint is enfolding and encrusting. I scraped all the paint off the palette, scraped the whole bloody lot, all those failures of paint, scraped it all off and made this, what always happens, is sort of a grey mixture, and put it on the canvas and dropped a lot more cigarette in. So they became enmeshed, do you see? I mean, you know, I work every day and only occasionally does the muse choose to arrive and paint a painting for me. The rest of the time I was producing absolute shit. So it's called Bad Day and it's a self-portrait. And I'm entirely composed of all the cigarettes that I've smoked. Okay?
What do you think about smoking in the current situation?
It's a fantastic thing to smoke now. People
Apparently.
in hospital, I gather, are being injected with nicotine to keep away the virus. And if one is a smoker, like David Hockney and me, you are less likely touching wood,
Yeah.
to catch it. I would recommend smoking to all the viewers. It keeps you strong. Okay, so that's Bad Day. I always like the quick ones. And this painting happened on VE Day. And it's called Armistice. I mean, because quite apart from what's going on, at the moment, Armistice Day, which I know is in November, but we had VE Day just now, and the 2-minute silence, which I stood here still for, just brings all that back. And one of the differences between those of us who are alive and those of us who are dead is that the dead obviously are horizontal and we're still vertical, and so it was a very simple idea of one standing figure surveying the sort of aftermath of a battlefield. So I suppose that ties in with war. We're never going to get away from war. War is going to always be happening. And that it's just called Armistice, and it was painted on VE Day.
And do you go out and rattle your pans on Thursday evenings?
I certainly rattle. I rattle my special brew can. They make a very good sound. 8 o'clock on Thursday evenings.
So are there any positives that are coming out of
All right, now, stay where you are.
COVID?
That is called Armistice. Kind of after a war, but the devastation it's caused. And this one, I don't know if it will hang up properly. It may not. I'll try it. This little diptych.
Are these works conceived as diptychs, or do they start with one and then?
No, I realised, in both cases, I realised afterwards that they were diptychs. It's not going to quite be together as it should be.
Not bad, not bad.
It's a joyous little thing. It's called Dawn Chorus.
Mm-hmm.
I presume you can see the birds.
We can see the birds, for sure.
It's about the sound. There is suddenly the light, the beginning, and the wonderful chaotic sound of a dawn chorus. I mean, it's very light enhancing, uplifting, whatever you like. It's sort of the opposite of armistice. So, as opposed to the conflict of these two things together, there is an aftermath of battlefield. And here's a burst of song.
So looking forward to the time when we can all go out to play once again, in the way that we used to. Is there one thing that you want to do? And also, if you could go and look at one work of art, one painting, one sculpture, one drawing, what would it be?
Difficult question, but I'd have to go on an aeroplane, I'm afraid, which is against all my principles, to Cologne, where hangs, I think, the last self-portrait Rembrandt did. It's only about this size. It's called The Laughing. It has a grander title, but it's generally known as The Laughing Self-Portrait. And I've painted a lot of laugh paintings in my time. People laughing, the sound of the laugh. I don't know how people go on who don't laugh. I try not to have much to do with them. But the essential and serious business of laughing, the chaos of the face, you can't, sort of sex, it's very sexy, that abandonment of any kind of pose of the face, the whole features are in chaos, and that abandon of the laugh. Here is a laughing painting, for instance, the first of a series of, it's just called Laughing.
And is that Let Haynes laughing? Is it, or does it just remind me?
It could be the Dalai Lama, could be my father.
It could be anybody. It's just all these people.
It's just good laughing. I mean, I'm trying to paint the sound of a laugh as it happens and throws all care to the wind. I mean, because the most disastrous thing that happens, and within a very short while, somebody has made a joke of it, and I don't know how without that we actually go on.
Is it a defence?
I suppose it is a defence, yes. Yeah. So, I would like to see that little last self-portrait of Rembrandt's, in which all care is gone and the paint is so fluid and on the move. I'd like to see that painting. And I'd like to be able to hug people again.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to have one big hug. It's going to be a big hug in a few weeks or months or years' time. Who knows? Okay, Maggie, thank you so much. That was wonderful, as always. Pleasure to be here, and good luck. Stay healthy. Keep smoking.
Stay safe. If anybody else says stay safe, I'm going to hit them.
Good, well, it won't be me, because I'm not going to do it.
Good.
Right, bye-bye.